Hello, everybody. This is Anita Finley, and I am your host for the ZOOMERTIMES TV. And I have one of the most, actually, she is probably of all the writers that I've ever had, that I've done reviews on, she is probably the most prolific. She is the most interesting woman because this isn't just what she sits at home and does. And so let me introduce you to Rose Stiffin, who you've seen before, but every time I think about what she's written, my mouth just, ah. So Rose, I have to say this, that you really must not sleep well at night because your mind must be going like crazy to develop all the characters that you develop in your novels.
Oh, I sleep well. I think I sleep well. I do think about the characters, and I do make sure that they're moving the way that they want to move. But I sleep well.
Yeah, your characters pop out of the page, and of all the books, and I have to tell everybody, if you go to our December issue, you'll see 4 reviews. I'll never forget when I asked Rose, I wanted to review one of her books. She said, "Well, would you review all 4?" And I almost fell out of my chair and said, "I've never done that before." But after I started reading them, I said, "I understand why she said this. You're and now you have another one that you're working on. I mean, it just never stops." But let's get into one specifically. I'll just name some of them. The ones we did have. We Walk in Bethel, and then Groovin' on the Half Shell, the biography of bluesman Carl Murray. That was a really interesting one about this man that doesn't exist, and I didn't know that. And then The Winter Friend, which was really, yeah, it was really very nice. And then Casino Blues. Now, Casino Blues was probably, of all the books, the most dangerous, the most compelling. I mean, it was filled with characters who, I don't know how you dreamt them up.
Well, I always wanted to write about a woman who, through actions that she started, would lose something that was near and dear to her, which would be her children, and also about a person who didn't have the blessing of children and how those two paths could cross. And so Casino Blues was the vehicle by which I did that.
And you are from Mississippi, and
Yes.
and there are casinos all along there. You know,
Oh, there are a lot in a town called Tunica or Robinsonville, Greenville, which is on the river, and down on the coast, Biloxi. So there are casinos all over Mississippi, even toward the Indian reservations, because they can be landlocked casinos. So there are a lot of casinos in Mississippi. There weren't 25, 30 years ago. There
I
were
was going to
not.
say that. I didn't think so. This is kind of a new. I mean, I grew up in Miami Beach, and I don't think we even had a casino in Miami Beach. We had High Life, but I don't remember a casino down there.
Well, we didn't have casinos for a long time, and the economy for the state really changed when the casinos came, because Tunica, where a lot of the casinos are, was one of the poorest counties in the nation, not in Mississippi, in the nation. And they put casinos in and around Tunica, built up the economy.
I see. But
Yes.
so, but the casinos, there are a lot of people who are poor in those areas. So they're also getting people from all over the South, I have to assume,
Well, you mean to go to
to
casinos?
go to the
Yeah.
casinos.
Well, I think everyone thinks that their luck will change if they go to a casino.
Right.
And so
Of
they
course.
go and they may win a few $100s, but they've lost thousands. But yes, they are crowded.
Yep, that's true. Well, why don't we discuss some of the characters? I know the one thing I like about what you do is very interesting. In the back of most of your books, not all of them, but most of them, you have discussion questions. And I think that's great because I would hope that your books would be books for a book club. And then it helps people, right?
Yes, yes.
And
Well,
so,
I've had Casino Blues as a book club, but only one discussion. I would like to have more.
right. But where you say, describe a few of the main characters. Why don't you do that and tell us where that all comes from? Because they're different. And some of them you like and some you hate.
So I started with Trudy, who is one of the female protagonists. And even though I don't want to do a spoiler, even though she did unsavory things, she really was a protagonist. You were rooting for her, even though you knew that there was no way she could continue. So there's Trudy. She was in love with a young man. His nickname was Fat Boy, and he was doing unsavory things also, but they loved each other. And they both met with a disastrous end because of their lifestyle.
Right.
Then I introduce the another female protagonist, and this is Melinda and her fiance, her husband, and what they are going through. They are a childless couple, and the reasons are explained in the novel.
Mhm.
But I must also have introduced a male protagonist who was not a good guy. He was an antagonist, but I wanted him to be able to be redeemed. All of my novels have a redemptive aspect. And so even though Trudy and Fat Boy died, in a way they were redeemed because their children got a better life. And the doctor, realizing his behavior, he changed also. And it was because of what he saw going on around him. And he changed because of that. But he was not a good character at the beginning. In fact, throughout the novel, up until about a third before it was ended, he was still a despicable character.
That's right. And it's funny that I don't hardly even watch detective stories or things with murder because I like nice, peaceful things. But somehow your words are well thought out, even though a person isn't nice. You write very, very well. There's a kindness in your words somehow, even though the character, him or herself, you don't like them, you still can get through it. It's not mean and ugly.
Yes. And I'm not going to say I can't write mean and ugly. I
No,
don't like
don't write mean and ugly.
I don't like to write mean and ugly.
No,
I
please.
really think it. I want you to come away with some idea that this is a good. This happened in a good way. I would hate to see just bad all the way through the novel because then it becomes horrible and there's no redemption.
Right. And you in all your books too, you're very good at twists and turns. You are
Oh,
good at that.
I hope.
Yeah, yeah, you are. All of a sudden you're reading, and where did this come from? So I
Well,
don't know if I.
I think life can do that because life can say, "Oh wow, we're going to throw you a turn," and if you don't deal with it, that turn can overwhelm you.
Very much so. You
Right.
know, yesterday, it's funny, I was doing something with my wallet. I left my wallet home. I never do that. And I had to go to the doctor's office. And when I realized I didn't have it, I didn't panic. But I'll tell you, driving home, I was so careful because it's that twist and turn that all of a sudden it was innocent, you see? And then you could imagine, all right, suddenly you're having an accident, and then the police don't know where this is, and then something happens. So things can happen just out of pure coincidence.
I agree. I agree.
So tell everybody about the children and how you involve children, because that's very difficult.
Well, I wanted, in fact, I wrote a couple of children's point of view. And one of them, one of the children is the older of the three children. There are three children. There's Matthew, there's Sasha, and then the baby. Of course, the baby is less than a year old, but Matthew is looking at what is happening to his mother. He knows what's going on. He may not be able to articulate it, but he knows what's going on and how that affects him. And in one of the chapters, he said, you know, he was always afraid that his mother would live. He was always afraid that his mother would die because of the life she led. And because of her addiction, he didn't want to see that, but he understood what would happen. He understood that. And a child to have that burden and then to protect the sister from that, because he was a very protective brother. And, yep, you know, what happened to him and his sister, I think it's heart rendering, but at the same time, they are redeemed. They are separated from their parents. They don't know what's going on. And then they are rescued by strangers, and these strangers are very kind. But he realizes that either he has to go with his new family, or he may be lost in the system of foster care or adoption or abuse. And thank God he was rescued along with his sister. He did lose the baby, but that is also real life because of the lifestyle that his mother was leading.
Right. Yeah, I just want to tell everybody, I'm talking with the author, Rose Stiffin, who wrote Casino Blues, and you can see in our December issue, we did a book review on that one, plus her other books, and she's really, it's a class act. And, you know, I just want to divert for 1 minute, Rose, to tell everybody who hasn't maybe seen you before, that you're really a PhD in research at a university, and you teach and you're into cancer research. It seems to me like it's such a juxtaposition, but maybe it's not.
Well, I don't know, because a lot of people say, oh, you have a left brain and a right brain, and they are supposed to do different things. Well, maybe I use both sides of my brain. I don't know. I do like to write, and I do like to read research. I like to do research if I can. I encourage my students to do research, and I encourage my students to seek their degrees in medicine or research. And so I am a very strong proponent of that. But I love writing also. And just as this is my 6th novel, it just came out. And I'm hoping that eventually we can talk about this one. It's called 5 Stethoscopes, which means I have 5 doctors, but 6 secrets. So everybody has a secret. So this is the novel. This is my 6th
Oh,
one.
yeah.
And
it's going to be fabulous.
7th one. But right.
It's amazing. And the stethoscopes, that was, you know, I didn't know yet about that book, but it was like, what are those things? Of course, knowing that you are a doctor, in a sense that I thought, well, it's only, you know, I don't think you've really done much with your other books on medicine or doctors, have you? Or did I miss that?
Well, not really, but since this is a novel, it's more about 5 young ladies who go to medical school.
Oh,
and
5 ladies. Okay.
So it's more about what their lives are about. It's not about medicine. And so I don't want to be a dry medical book. It is about 5 young ladies going to medical school and what each one of them has as a secret, and how those secrets are going to be revealed, and how these secrets may form their lives.
That's going to be really interesting. And right. So, do you take some of your ideas from real life? You have friends, of course, who are physicians and all. Does anyone ever accuse you of that character seems like such and such or so and so?
No, because they're all fictional. So I'm going to say no. But now with my 6th novel, because I am in science and I have groomed students to become medical doctors, I'm not going to say I took one person, but each person is a conglomeration of various students, male or female, that I could use as bits and pieces of them. And so, although I may say, okay, I know that this student said this, I'm going to put into the novel. It's not as if I'm plagiarizing. It's
No.
not as if I'm taking their life story. I'm simply saying that person said or did something that's worthy of going into my novel.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling my audience, I'm telling our audience something. Now, I was talking to Rose before about how distressed I have been about the terrible thing that's happened to our government just recently. So the way to get away from it really is to turn off the TV and get into her novels. And I'm just going to tell you again, it's Walk in Bethel. The other is Groovin' on the Half Shell, a novel, the biography of bluesman Carl Murray, and then A Winter Friend, and then we were talking about Casino Blues. They're all novels, but, and I told her this, the one with, and I told you, the biography of bluesman Carl Murray, I kept looking him up and he didn't exist, but he did such a good job with him. I was sure he was somebody.
No. I made him up also. And I don't know why, but I always wanted to write about a man who essentially, if you read it, he has two wives.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write that in a way that somehow could work. And I think that I managed to get it to work.
It did.
It was not duplicitous at all. And that is where the title comes from, because I make up all of my titles. And so Grooving on the Half Shell suggested that he was kind of crazy to do this. But actually, if you look at the cover,
oh, it's beautiful.
He found two women that could be in the same, that could be pearls in the same oyster. So
right, that was beautiful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No. I love that cover. Absolutely, with the two pearls. That was so these are things that you tell the publisher what you want and then they design it, but you have the basic idea.
Well, I'll send them ideas, a pictorial example, and they will either go with it or find what I want. But I always make sure that I get the final approval. And I said, okay, I want to make sure that we have an oyster shell that's on the half with two pearls inside. And I sent them an idea and they created it and I loved it. I loved it also because I was struggling with the cover and I said, no, it's got to be a pearl inside of an oyster, but he had two, so I put two inside the oyster shell.
And they found this beautiful oyster shell, and then it's gorgeous, and then Groovin was great. Well, of course, you know Dan, who is our administrator, and he's our producer, director of the ZOOMERTIMES TV, and he's good about those things. Sometimes I'll write something, I'll say, Dan, we need this, and he comes up with a great idea for it, because it does make a difference. I mean, a book, not everybody will pick up a book casually. The title's the most important thing. And then the cover image is pretty important, right?
Yes, always.
And so, and so you're still in your mid-years. Do you see continuing this? And you're probably going to have, by the time you're finished, 50 books. I can see it happening, 50 novels.
Well, I would love for that to happen. I definitely have some ideas, and I wrote well last night. I finished a chapter last night, and I was happy about that. But it took me a week to write that chapter. Now, I don't know if that's normal or not, but I was struggling because I wasn't sure what the character was doing, and he is not a good guy. And so I wanted to make sure that that there was a reason for his not being a good guy. And I had to put in how he was formed based on his childhood, because a lot of our personalities are formed before we turn 12.
Yes, absolutely. We know that. That's exactly. So true. And yet there are people that blame their parents, and yet some people can escape from that. Some people just lie in that mire. They can't get out of it.
And I think because of, like you said, he wanted to blame his parents, or he can blame his parents. And so he lies in the mire. He
Right.
doesn't know he's lying in the mire. That's what makes him a bad guy.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Tell me though, what were your parents like?
My mother was very strict, and we were all raised by her being a very strict disciplinarian. My father was more of a reasoning person. He would rather talk to you to figure out why you did this. And my mother, if you did it, okay, you're going to get a punishment. But my father might punish us, but he wants to know why. And I think that that's important if you're going to raise children. You don't want to do anything in anger. And I think with my father, he could be disappointed. My mother could be angry. And I think if you disappoint your parents, you feel worse. Because I hated to disappoint my father. And that meant that he was a fair disciplinarian. And my mother was simply a strict disciplinarian. I'm not going to say it was good or bad. I was raised during an era when you could spank your children. And so she did spank us, you know.
How many were there? How many siblings did you have?
I have 5 older siblings. My oldest brother passed away 2 years ago in December. And he was the first to go to college. All 6 of us went to college. We all picked cotton. We all chopped cotton.
Right.
My mother and father were not formally educated. My father went to 6th grade. My mother, I think she went to school for a month. I don't think she went to school, to be perfectly honest, but she said that she went for a month. And if I'm correct in my memory, she was 13. So she went at 13 and stayed for a month. So to me, she didn't go to school, but she learned how to read. She learned how to write, and she was an avid politician. My father was very philosophical. My mother was very regimental in her thinking. I think if she could have been educated, she would have been an engineer. My father would have probably studied physics because he loved the physical world. He loved astronomy. And my mother would have been a mechanical engineer. I know that without a doubt.
And what are your brothers, what are their professions?
Well, my oldest brother was a biology professor, teacher for several years. They loved him in biology. My second brother was a music major, and he sang with different choirs. He did his degree in voice music. My third brother is an engineer for Monsanto. He's an electrical engineer for Monsanto. My sister is a chemist for the Department of Energy. My youngest brother has a master's in horticulture, basically, and he has a master's in horticulture, but he works for the state of Minnesota. And I have a PhD in biochemistry. So all of us, as I said, are educated, and 5 of us went into science or a related area of science. My second brother was the only one who did music, and he is the only one who has any music talent. None of us can sing. He was the only one who can sing.
So your parents lived to see everybody graduate, I hope?
My father died when I was 12, so he did not live to see any of us graduate from college. No. My oldest brother was in college when my father passed away, and he wanted to quit to help my mother, but my mother said, no, you're going to go to school. And so he was the first to graduate.
But your mother lived to see all of you?
She lived to see all of us graduate. She lived to see me get my PhD, and she literally died a year later, literally a year later. So I find that a blessing, because a year before that, I would have said, no way. But she lived to see me get my PhD, and she passed away in June of 1996. I got my PhD in June of 1995. So it was literally a year later.
Well, Rose Stiffin, we have a couple of minutes left, and what would you like to tell the audience, other than I want you to all get her books, and just look up Rose Stiffin. You can do that on, You can go to Google, you can go to YouTube, you'll see we've done this before and we'll be doing some more of them. What would you just like people to know about your books?
Well, I think that they are good literary novels. And I think that if you have an interest in reading, you will like how I write.
Yes.
And I would love to talk about them. So if someone out there has a book club, if they want me to come and speak, if they want me to, I love to read. So even if you say, you know what, I'm a struggling writer, I love to read. So I like to, I edit, and I can say, hey, you know, let's look at this, let's look at that. I'm not going to say I'm a professional editor, but because I love to read, if you say, okay, I want you to read my novel and see what you think, I will do that. I've done that in the past. So I'm not a selfish writer. I think some people will say that they like only their genre. I read almost anything except horror. So I would read anything except horror, or something where it is so horrific to a female that I can't take that. So again, I would love to talk about my novels or just talk about writing.
Well, we'll have Rose back again because she has quite a few novels here. But I do want to thank you so much. And if you're having a problem with character development, she's the queen of character development, I have to tell you. So Rose, thank you very much. And we'll talk to you again, and be well, stay healthy, and just be as wonderful as you are.
Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate it, Ms. Finley. I already adore you. We have not met face to face.
We will be together though as soon as we can. I've got to see you.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, you're going to be one of my buddies. I have to tell you, you're so special. So thank you, Rose. Okay, and we'll talk again. All right.
Take care. Take care.
Okay. Bye, everybody. We'll be right back with another interview.